Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Easy, but Not So Easy. Today, we're going to have a very interesting conversation about what it means to switch jobs. Now, most of us are going to probably find that we're going to have to pivot through different careers at different points in our lives, and it's not going to be uncommon that we find ourselves going from different employer to different employer. But the reality is that as you move up in your profession and you are in the workplace for a period of time, switching jobs becomes a more significant endeavor, meaning when you're 18, 19, switching a job may not mean as much. But when you start getting around late 20s, early 30s, when you're heading into the early years of your career, switching jobs needs to be done in a very thought-provoking manner. But there's easy components and there's not so easy components. So let's talk about the easy part first. First, it's a new employer. Whether you want to believe it or not, we've conditioned ourselves to believe that anything new is invariably better. Because for whatever reason, is because you've got new employees, new coworkers, new services, new products, whatever the case may be. Going into a new work environment just the newness of it just feels like it's better. Which also leads to another point, new benefits. The reality is that if you are leaving your current job to go to another job, it typically is going to be because they have all these extra bells and whistles that maybe your current employer doesn't have, whether it be educational opportunities, leave opportunities, benefit programs that maybe your employer doesn't currently have. And so that makes it even easier to switch to that job because not only is it new, but it's giving you new benefits. And then finally, you also have the opportunity that you have what I call new opportunities. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you feel that in your current job you have maxed out on what you're capable of doing, then actually participating in a new job at a new environment with new opportunities, you have a new opportunities is just not merely you going and doing some new work. It also means that people also have the opportunity to get exposed to your capabilities. So now it's all these new wonderful ways that you can show people your value and your worth, as well as you having the opportunity to acquire new skills that you can add to your repertoire. So the easy part of switching to a new job is that you're dealing with a new employer with new benefits and new opportunities. That, my friend, is what I call the easy part. But let's take a second to talk about the not so easy part. Just as I mentioned that there were three things to focus on with regards to the easy part in terms of benefits, new employer, and new opportunities, let's talk about three things that you need to think about in terms of the not so easy part. First, it's difficult to determine what the upside is. And you're like, what do you mean by that? Well, when you're looking at your current job and you're going to another one, you've got to be honest with yourself to say, let's put them side by side. How is this new job better? Don't get me wrong, people make lateral moves all the time. But if you're going to go to a lateral move where, in essence, you may not be gaining anything, as a matter of fact, you may be putting added stress on yourself, is that really an upside? So you have to ask yourself, what is the benefit of this new position? Does it put you closer to home because in terms of travel? Does it give you better opportunities for taking care of your kids with regards to scholarship programs? Is it a bump in pay? Does it have a more liberal vacation policy? You have to be honest with yourself and say, this is what I have now, and put the new employer that you're looking at going to and stack it up to see, is there an upside? Is there a positive, an increased positive over what you have now that would drive you going towards another employer? The other part that's not so easy is not appreciating if this is part of the big plan. Meaning, well, if you're in your current employer and you know your current employer allows you the ability to do all these other things, or it feeds into your skill set to do other things, how is going to this new employer going to be a part of that plan? If it's just merely a stopgap and doesn't give you anything or doesn't add anything to you, then why are you going over the first place? Meaning, if your goal is to open up your own, you're working as a mechanic at a auto dealership and your goal is eventually open up your own garage, if you have an opportunity to go to a different dealership to do the same thing you're doing now, how is that going to benefit you? As opposed to, using that extra time to allocate towards working on opening up your garage earlier as opposed to going over there. So you have to ask yourself and this is where people tend to get stuck, is the new job in the grander scheme of things going to contribute to that part of the plan, or is it better for you to stay at your current job because your current job does for you what you need it to do anyway? And then the third and the biggest one, and this is the one most people will never know until you switch over. You're not sure if it's better. There's an old adage and phrase that says the grass is always greener on the other side, but then there's a follow-up to that that says the crap is smellier. That's a nice way of effectively saying that a lot of times we get so caught up in the bells and whistles that we think that those bells and whistles demonstrates that this is a much better working environment, that we don't take stock in the reality that we really don't know what this new environment has to hold. The reality is that you could be going to a situation where the work environment is infinitely worse. And now you're in this situation where you've gone and you've left the job that you know to go to a place that's now worse than where you came from. So it's important for you to understand that when you're looking at this new place, you don't know anything about it in terms of you've never worked in that environment. So if you don't have any friends or people you can reach out to who can tell you what the culture of the environment is, you're literally walking in blind on the thought and then the hope that this is going to be a better situation, but not totally sure if that's actually going to be the case. Now, here's something else that I need you to also be aware of. When you're switching jobs, you need to be strategically switching. And what I mean by that is that you have to do what I call a cost-benefit analysis. You need to be able to take a moment, to take a step back and ask yourself, what is the pros and cons of me going to this new job? Is it really going to elevate me forward in a manner that's going to be best for me? Now, we all have a myriad of different reasons why we make switches from one job to another. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not they perfectly line up. What you need to ask yourself, as one of my best friends told me literally the other day, whatever decision you make sure it's one that's going to make you happy. Because a lot of times we make these decisions on the fly without truly diving into how is this going to actually lend itself to my overall happiness. And as long as you've got that in mind, when you're getting ready to switch a job, you can always do it strategically because it's always going to be with your best interest in mind. All right, everyone. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on today. And check it out. As always, I have to ask and end with this final question. Are you ready for the Anthony Reeves Experience?